everyone, and welcome to the Tony Tonkin Show live feed with Avery and Tony. So much to talk about because last Thursday, when Avery was on... What's that?
Turn the music off.
Oh, the music's off. Can you hear it in the background? Can you? It's Avery just telling me the music was up. I don't think so. But anyway, thanks, Avery. I hope it's not running right now. We will see. So, just wanted to say, before I was interrupted by Avery, that we've got so much to talk about and lots to consider. Because last time Avery was on a Thursday, there was no war. Well, none that was significant, really, apart from Ukraine and other little skirmishes in Africa. But apart from that, there wasn't anything major happening. But now there is. There's this massive war in Iran, and one of the topics that we will be talking about, for which Avery is an expert, is the issue around religion and whether this is a religious war or not. I've put up a poll, incidentally, and I asked you to refer to that. Is the war with Iran a religious war? And at the moment, that is something that's been open to debate. So we'll have a conversation about that. We're interested in your response to that. We'd like to have some sense as to what you think or feel about that particular issue. And can we just say, can I ask you to subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for further notifications. And I want to thank Sandra, who's already given us $10, which goes to Avery. So I really appreciate that as well. Thank you very much, Sandra. It's fantastic. So we're going to have a chat about all of that stuff. Now, we must remember the most important thing that you do is to have a commentary, to have a conversation with us about all of this stuff, because we believe that it's important for you to be involved in this conversation. This is what it's all about. And there's been lots of people already online talking about that. And I really do appreciate it. Someone's put up here. I'll bring in Avery first. I forgot. I've got Avery online. I mean, he's already telling me the sound was a bit shitty. But nevertheless, and Avery's just bought a new computer. So who knows how this is all going to work. We had trouble getting the audio right to start with. But nevertheless, we got here. So welcome, Avery. Glad to see you here, buddy. Glad to know that you're alive and well. I think that's the important thing.
It's good to be here. It's good to be alive and well. I wasn't telling you that the sound was shitty. What I was on about was I couldn't hear your intro over the music because the music was so loud.
Oh, I see. Well,
I've got a brand new computer. I got that pissed off with the old one, which was 11 years old. So it's
it was a bit archaic, to say the least.
Yes, it was about 200 in human years. That thing was. So we just bit the bullet a couple of days ago and went out and bought a new one.
Good on you, mate.
Spent a couple of days setting it up. So,
and you know, it means Avery now can have. He's got his own channel thing happening, hopefully, and he can now use some of the fancy software that I tend to use for mine as well. Talked about that. So let's get into it, Avery. I'm gonna start this session though by playing a video from Al Jazeera, which does talk about this religious war. And then I'm going to ask you for some feedback in relation to that. I've also got a news item here, which is Albanese says Australia support US actions against Iran and stands with the Iranian people's struggle against oppression. And so we're going to also talk about Australia's involvement in this war, whether or not it's appropriate, whether or not we are involved, to what extent we may be involved in terms of providing assistance to the United States and Israel. And I've got certainly some strong views around all of that. So I'm just going to play this video for you all, and Avery and I will talk about it when it's finished. Right, and I just realised the audio isn't working on that, so I've just got to fix that for a second. So just bear with me while I do that. And I don't know why that wasn't working, but that's just one. Oh, it should be working. Okay, let's just give it another whirl. No, okay, forget about that one. So already reached a glitch, and I don't know why that necessarily is not working, and it should be, but it ain't. So I'll just have to change that to that. That should be fine. Give it another shot, Avery. No, not working. So we'll forget about that. We'll forget about that for a moment. But I guess the issue here that we need to discuss is that the United States and Israel have decided that this is a religious war, and one has to wonder what makes it a religious war, and how far back in bloody history are they going to? They're going back 2,000 years plus to identify this particularly as a religious war. What are your thoughts on whether it is? And I'll just ask everybody to contribute to this conversation. Do you think this is a religious war or not? Let us know.
Well, I don't think it's a religious war at all. It's, as I said in a comment, as soon as I saw your poll there. By the way, the poll is currently 74% saying no, it's not, and I don't think it is at all. What I said in there is what they should be calling it is Operation Epstein diversion. Trump's done this, I think. I mean, I was joking about that Epstein diversion. It is a diversion because they're not talking about Epstein, about the Epstein files. But I think that what's happened, what he's got it in his head, that the American people will rally around him in November, the way they rallied around George W. Bush after the 9/11 attack. The difference between these two is that 9/11, the people rallied around George W. Bush, I think, because the United States was attacked. No provocation, they were attacked. In this case, Trump decided to do the attacking. And so I think he's wrong that the American people are going to rally around him because they don't want this war. He wanted it. He's hoping it's going to help him win the
Sorry?
Right.
Right. Just got the word, Avery, that people are having. This is the problem when we've just started out. So people are having trouble hearing you. So I'm going to just take 5 seconds just to boost that back up.
Yeah,
which is a problem we started with. So
it seemed to be working fine earlier,
and it looks like it's working fine here. But I'm going to boost that right up now.
Yeah. Okay.
So here we go. We've boosted you up. People should be able to hear you now. Sorry about that, mate. Start again.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. What I was saying was that I started off with a joke on the comments by saying that it should have been called Operation Epstein Diversion. It is a diversion from Epstein, because the Epstein files, because people are talking about what's going on in the Middle East instead of talking about the Epstein files. I think that a big thing that's happened here is that he saw what happened with George W. Bush after 9/11, where the American people rallied around him. The difference, what happened there, of course, was that the United States was attacked. It wasn't the attacker. In this case, the people, because the United States was attacked by foreign people. They were from Saudi Arabia, one of the United States' biggest allies in the Middle East. The American people rallied around the president. In this case, the president, and I hate using that word to describe a fascist paedophile like Trump, but in this case, Trump decided that he was going to attack Iran. He's got no sound reason for doing it. He's got no justification for doing it that I can see. Apart from hoping it's going to rally the people around him for November.
Well, I guess the primary argument there too is that, and I don't know what people think of this argument, is that our friend Netanyahu has been leaning on Trump for months, if not years, to complete a desire that Netanyahu has had for 40 years to destroy Iran, because simply Iran have been Israel's greatest enemy in terms of the proxies they've had in the region and a whole host of other incursions, I guess. But in doing so, it interests me that that Israel have chosen to also extend the war in Lebanon, to decide that this is an opportunity to which they can start to increase their influence and their land size, incidentally, by developing a buffer zone in Lebanon, between Lebanon and Israel, which may make it a bit more difficult for Hezbollah to bomb them.
Well, that's the reason for doing that.
Bevan?
So that's the reason for attacking Lebanon, is because the Hezbollah are sponsored by Iran.
Yeah, I know. And also, I mean, there's really a whole host of interesting issues here. As someone said, so many people are calling it Operation Epstein Diversion, as someone's put up there, which is an agreement with you.
Yep.
But also, I think the important thing here to understand is that this is about Israel and United States imperialism. And the question is also, and I don't know what you think about this, whether or not you think this is going to be a relatively short-term war, or whether or not Iranians can have got more weapons available to them, maybe not ballistic missiles, but certainly drones, than what the United States has. Do you have a view around that?
Well, I don't think there's any country on the planet that could take on the United States with their military. They got their budget this year is $1 trillion. They've got more shipping and more naval ships than half the rest of the world put together. I mean, they got so much power. They equate that power that makes America great. It doesn't. It just means they're strong. I don't think it's going to last. I don't think it's going to last like a year and a bit, like the thing in Gaza's done, or certainly not going to last anything like the time that the Ukraine-Russia war's gone. I think maybe a month, couple of months at most, because the Iranians, I don't think they've got the weaponry, they haven't got the skill. I mean, they're not attacking. What they've been doing to retaliate is attacking hotels and things like that in Bahrain and Kuwait. They attacked an oil tanker, but they've not been attacking the U.S. military itself, from what I've heard. There's been a couple of soldiers were killed on an airbase, but they've been not very accurate in their shooting.
Yeah. I think that, and they've just destroyed. They're destroying the any forces that the Iranians had on sea. They're destroying their navy, I guess, to some extent. The Americans are, but you kind of, when I don't know about others, but when I look at Ukraine, when I look at Iran, I see a massive land coverage. I mean, it's a massive hunk of land, really. And also, they have mountains, and it reminds me a bit like the war in Afghanistan. The problem with that was it took so long because they hid in mountains and in tunnels and all these other places, and it was difficult for the United States to be able to win, I guess, or to at least create an environment in which they were likely to win in Afghanistan. And the same thing's likely to happen here, I think, in Iran at the moment. And the other thing too, the other issue that I want to raise too, which may interest some people, is that the United States use ballistic missiles in order to be able to, or use other missiles of similar nature in order to destroy the incoming from Iran. Iran, though, uses drones in order to return the attack. So while the Americans are spending heaps and heaps of missiles off to destroy one, and the same with Israel, one particular incoming, the Iranians, and every time they fire one of those, the Americans and the Israeli, it costs about $1 million, whereas the Iranians are hitting them with drones that cost $50,000. So just a matter of economics, I'd suggest at the moment the Iranians are ahead of the game. The question is, how many of those drones do the Iranians have, and how many ballistic missiles or other missiles do the Americans have? And the big question that people are asking at the moment is, who's going to run out first? I think that's an issue as well.
Well, firstly, the Americans aren't using ballistic missiles; they're using things like cruise missiles, which is different.
Yeah.
Ballistic missiles would be launching them from near Offutt, Nebraska, and they'd fly 8,000 miles and blow the shit out wherever they landed in. And from that distance, they could put it into. Well, say they were firing at Moscow, they could put it into Putin's lap. Those weapons are that accurate. They're firing. What they're using is cruise missiles, which are much shorter range. The big advantage that they've got compared to they are $1 million or $2 million, whatever the cost is per shot. But you're delivering 1,000 kilograms, 2,200 odd pounds of explosive. How much can you carry with a drone? The answer is it's measured in tens of kilograms, not thousands of them. So with one cruise missile can do orders of magnitude greater damage than a drone that's costing $50,000.
So let's get back to that original discussion, though, whether or not this is a religious war. What, in your view, what would make it, if we just take the other side of the argument here for a moment, Avery, in your view, what would make it a religious war? Because is this about Christians, namely the Americans, Jews, namely the Israel? Is it a religious war simply because both of those countries have an alignment with a particular religious belief? And of course, the Iranians are Shiite Muslims. So does that in itself make it a religious war? And the other question is, how successful have religious wars been over the centuries?
That's the easy one to answer. They've never been successful. They've been really good at committing genocide, things like that. Particularly the Christian Church has got a longer history of doing it, of course. The Christian Church was very, very good at massacring people, committing genocide. The religious war, it's between three groups of people who all worship the same God, but so what they're fighting over is who's worshipping this God in the right way. The Jews say, I've got one view on this particular God. Christians have got a second view on this same God. And the Muslims, they got their view. They're all arguing about who's right about which one is, who's doing it the right way. Is this war a religious war? I don't think it is. I don't think it is because they're not fighting to promote their religion. Right? The United States hasn't gone to war. Despite what you're saying about Netanyahu, I don't think the United States, or Trump rather, has gone to war. It's not the United States. Trump has gone to war.
But I think the interesting thing here, which you really need to consider, is that the language that they're now using is to describe it as a religious war. And the question for me is, why would you start using that language? How does that appeal to your public? Is it something that MAGA people would be interested in? And would it present as a justifiable reason as to why we have this war? Are they trying to justify it to their populace? Or, because Mike Johnson came out the other day and he referred to it as a religious war. Rubio has suggested that it's a religious war. I think Trump's now had said that. Pete Hegseth, the clown of all clowns, has said that it is. So does this mean that they were losing the war and that they're now losing the popular vote around the war, and that they've now decided that this is a religious war simply because it resonates with their population?
they haven't in the United States. They haven't had the support of the people for this war at all since it started, and it's only been gone 4 days, something like that, 5 days.
Yeah.
The big book of batshit crazy, the book of Revelation, says that Jesus will return when a major war breaks out in the Middle East, and if there's people like Mike Johnson, who is one of the kings of batshit crazy, he firmly believes that. He says that he gets, when he wants guidance about things, he looks to the Bible. That's a really good guide as long as you're using it to tell you what not to do, how not to behave. He thinks that is a good guide, and he is looking forward to Jesus coming back, and he believes that this will help return it. Okay.
Sorry, mate. Just had someone come in.
Too loud now.
You're too loud now. I can't seem to win over this. Let's try and rectify that a little bit. Yep.
Yeah.
Well done.
I think the reason that Trump is talking about it being a religious war is because he can. When he took in the 2016 election, he talked about something that he doesn't give a shit about, and that was abortion. He spoke about that, about how he didn't like it and it should be banned and all that sort of shit. And why did he do it? Because it'd bring the evangelical Christians with him. If he talks about this as a religious war, maybe he's thinking what will happen is it'll bring the evangelicals in behind him on that war.
Yeah,
but it's got nothing to do with the religion itself.
Yeah. Sorry, man. Still trying to adjust your audio, and in doing so, I lowered my own. This is a pain in the ass, but nevertheless, we will soon get there. So you're saying that it isn't a religious war because these people who follow, who look to Revelations and other places are simply farting in the wind. That it's bullshit, crazy stuff. But you're also saying that it kind of doesn't make any sense religiously because they've lost so many, wars of this nature that are religious wars always end up badly. But what do you think about the reason why they're having this war and terming it as a religious war is simply because this is the notion that rests with the MAGA base, which they're losing because of this war.
That's what I was saying. That I think they're using that term in the United States. I think they're using that term in the hope that it'll bring the evangelical community with them. The evangelicals are the ones that believe that what it says in Revelation. In Israel, it may be that they're seeing it as an exit. Well, I'm sure they do. They see Iran as an existential threat to them.
Yeah.
But even then, I think I don't think they're not fighting it for religious reasons. I think they're fighting Iran for survival reasons.
Yeah, I just realised I've been turning down the wrong volume. So
all right. If you look at the history of religious wars, it's been the Catholics fighting the Protestants, or the Protestants fighting the Catholics, because they're not worshipping God the right way.
Yeah.
And when this war started, Israel didn't attack Iran, or the United States didn't attack Iran because the Shia Muslims are not worshipping God the right way. They attack them because they're Iran, who they see as a threat, because they want to see the Americans believe that they want to impose Islam all across the world. Now the Quran tells them that that's exactly what they got to do, but how can is a country like Iran going to be able to do it? The answer is probably not.
But, no.
But as I said, I think that Trump's reason for doing all this lot, twofold: diversion and hoping to bring the people with him the way they rallied behind George W. Bush, so that in November he doesn't lose the midterms, doesn't get impeached in January of next year.
Yeah,
because if he loses the midterms this year, and particularly if he loses the Senate with a significant majority, he can be impeached and then kicked out of office, and he doesn't want that.
Yeah, well, he plans to run for a third term, someone told me. So, so the notion around it's a religious war just has certain appeal to certain people, and I guess it is an argument in order to be able to increase their. I guess it's there to minimise the fears that they have that they might be losing the public over this particular intervention, and I believe that they are. So yes, that's important. I just wanted to come to Australia's side of this too. There is a post which says Albanese says Australia support US action against Iran and stands with the Iranians' people's struggle against oppression. Now, just before we go any further, let's just
say something about the Iranian people's struggle against oppression. They were
sure.
working towards getting rid of the, Khomeini was going to die soon anyway. The Yanks sped that up a bit. The people in Iran were getting sick and tired of that government, and they were heading towards democracy. Yeah. General Mark Hertling, he just recently said that what Trump has done is he's turned back the clock 40 years. So for the next 40 years, we're going to have Iranians saying we hate America.
Yeah.
And the other thought that occurred to me when I saw this earlier on about the struggle about Australia standing with the US's action against Iran and the Iranian people struggle against oppression. We should be standing with the American people against the oppression of the American government.
Yeah. Okay, great. So I'll just carry on with this article a little bit further, and then I think that's a great point. We'll talk about that. Department of Foreign Affairs warns travellers of risk of reprisal attacks, further escalation of flight cancellations in the Middle East. We know that Australians are now being returned to Australia. Australia has declared its support for US action against Iran to prevent it from obtaining a nuclear weapon and to prevent Iran continuing to threaten international peace and security. But Australia's Department of Foreign Affairs has warned of the risk of reprisal attacks and further escalation across the Middle East after the attacks. In a statement issued on Sorry?
Can I just make a couple of quick comments?
Yeah, go for it, mate. Yep, that's fine. Yep.
Go back up towards the top a bit. There's a bit there where it talks about people leaving, Australians being, where the Australians living in the area have been evacuating.
Yeah.
The Italian government has been evacuating, and they had no idea that this attack was going to take place. The UK government didn't know the attack was going to take place, and yet they've been successfully evacuating people. The Americans knew it was going to happen. The American government knew it was going to happen, and they made no plans whatsoever to evacuate Americans. There's hundreds of thousands of Americans living in the area. Lots of them want to get away from the area, and there's no plans were made at all to ensure that they could get out. Yesterday, Marco Rubio said, "Oh, if they just phone this number at the State Department, they'll be told how they can get away." So a reporter dialed that number, and what he got was a recorded message saying there are no plans for evacuating civilians from American civilians from the Middle East, or words to that effect. The other one that got me, the other thing I saw on there, said there was 2 points, is Trump did this, he says, to stop Iran getting a nuclear weapon. There were steps were taken in the early 2010s, starting around about 2010, 2011, and succeeded a thing called the JCPOA, which was a treaty between the United States, the EU, Russia, China, several other places, and Iran, that they would limit their production of their enrichment of uranium to 15%, which is the maximum that you need to build a nuclear power station. And to make nuclear weapons, it needs to be 85 to 95% enriched uranium. Why are they enriching uranium now? Because as soon as the Mango Mussolini, the Orange Hitler, took office in 2017, he scrapped the JCPOA, and the Iranians said, "Well, okay, we'll go ahead and enrich the material so we can build nuclear weapons." And he was responsible for any nuclear weapons that they might eventually build. He would be responsible for that very action, pulling out the JCPOA.
And at the end of the day, everything's Obama's fault. So there's a strong contradiction there, I think, as well. So this article goes on to say, in a statement issued on Saturday evening, Anthony Albanese said, Australia stands with the brave people of Iran in their struggle against oppression. The Prime Minister said Iran's ruling regime had been a destabilising force for decades through its ballistic missile and nuclear programs, support for armed proxies, and brutal acts of violence and intimidation. Iran directed at least 2 attacks on Australian soil in 2024. Albo keeps banging on about that. We get all of that, which targeted the Jewish community and were intended to create fear, divide our society, and challenge our sovereignty. He also highlighted the Iranian regime's brutal crackdown on its own people, leaving thousands of Iranian civilians dead. A regime that relies on the repression and murder of its own people to retain power is without legitimacy, he says. So,
why is he supporting the United States?
Pardon?
Why is he supporting the United States? Isn't that what they're doing in Minneapolis and Portland and Los Angeles, sending the ICE thugs in to kill people?
Well, this is, and you raise a great point, because this is the hypocrisy of this whole thing.
Yeah.
We have in Israel, we have the IDF bombing Gaza, no one giving a shit about the 60,000 innocent people that have died. We have Israel destroying the West Bank and settlers coming in and kicking people out of their homes and abusing them and killing them. And we don't have, the hypocrisy of everything that they're doing, even the hypocrisy of calling this a religious war, is just beyond friggin' belief. I cannot understand, I will never understand why it is that they can't see that by doing one thing in one area, namely Gaza, killing all those people and children, and they can't equate the devastation and the murder that happens in Iran, that they can't see that both of these visions are wrong, that they're harmful, they're killing people, that both of those are wrong. And I can't understand how you can possibly, under those circumstances, justify one against the other. I just don't get
it. Because they're calling it a religious war, that's going to be their justification, because they're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
As I said earlier, the history of Christianity, the history of Islam as well, has been to persuade people to follow this God. The right way is my way, not your way, it's my way. And you either convert to my way or you're going to die.
And I do need to say, Avery, I'm doing a special interview, a live interview with a bloke who's a Muslim bloke, who on Wednesday at 1:00, who came to me because he saw my feeds, and I do invite people. If you want to come and have a chat to me, fine. So happens he doesn't live far from me, so he came in here and I did the interview in my studio. But I'll be releasing the recorded interview that I did, but I'm also going to have this live chat with him on Wednesday at 1:00. So he's a Sunni Muslim who is so well versed in this subject that I don't think there's anyone that could argue significantly around him, simply because he's got so much. He's written a couple of books, does debates on the internet, and he's the most intriguing dude. So he's going to be talking to me on a live feed on Wednesday next week. I do suggest people tune into that. It will be fascinating, and because he makes a distinct difference between what are Shiite Muslims and their adherence to a cleric, and the Sunnis, who are more, I guess, eclectic in a way, and how they do differ across the regions. And he certainly has all the history. He's the sort of bloke that you'd have fun debating, I reckon. I might set you against him at some particular point. That'll be a fun debate. So
Islam is the same as Christianity in that you get all these different sects in Christianity in Christianity denominations, and you got the same thing in Islam, and it's all and within the religion, it's all about arguing. They're arguing about this is the right way to do it, not your way. My way is the right way because I'm a Congregationalist, or I'm a Baptist, or I'm a Pentecostal, and this is the right way to do it, and everybody else is. And of course, every Christian says every Protestant Christian says Catholics aren't Christians, and I'm sure every Sunni Muslim says that Druze aren't Muslims really. It's
anyway, I'm not gonna get into that.
No,
I won't
don't get into that
specific
get away from
debate.
No.
And I want to say at this moment, I do apologise for the technical difficulties that we've had here. It's been a bit confusing, and I'm not blaming Avery for that. There's some errors I made too in setting all of this up today with regard to audio and other stuff. It's a bit more complicated than people might think. So, and I do it on my own. So I don't have, and that's why we ask for donations to help us to manage and to pay for all the things that we're trying to do to put this together for you. I just want to refer to some. So I just wanted to. I'm just going through some of the. There's been heaps and heaps of. There's so many. I'm trying to find a discussion point here, and I'm really struggling to find something.
Sandra is saying that mentions oil. She says letters in the age today indicate we need less reliance on oil and start fast tracking.
Yeah, Israel's been doing this since 1948. Yeah. That's so true. Nobody blinked an eye when India, since its founding. All right, so that's James. He's a mate of yours. So he's replying to Sandra's. So good conversations going in there. James, really appreciate, or not James, and Happy Hellish. Wow, so many people sucked in by screen wars. And so someone also has said this. A response, well, so many people sucked in by screen wars and official figures.
I wonder what they mean by official figures. Do they mean official figures in the way of Trump or Netanyahu, or do they mean
number of people that have died?
Yeah,
maybe it's number of people that have died. Someone else has said, Sandra has said, I have more respect for Arabs and Persians than Israelis. And I think that's a fair comment, though. It's not, Arabs also include it includes most of the Middle East, really. Arab people and Persians, which is originally who they are, I guess. They still see themselves as being, which includes Turkey, I think.
The Arabs, Persians, and Jews are all Semitic people. So being anti-Semite means that you're opposed to Arabs and Persians, maybe the Turks as well. I don't know about that, but
there's a lot of debate going on here. Someone has suggested make religious institutions pay tax. That's about reduce their numbers. I think that's probably a good idea as well. I know it's a good idea.
You know how much has said. A couple of years ago, I think it was it might have been the what do you call the Australian, or one of the big newspapers in the East worked out the tax that would be paid if churches were taxed, and it was something like $38 billion a year.
Yeah, imagine if the Roman Catholic Church paid taxes, how much that would benefit the people that they're supposed to care for and all that sort of crap.
Religions are the ultimate control weapon.
I thought you might like that one, Avery. That's why I put it up.
Absolutely. I've said to many people many a time that the idea of God was invented by people to exercise control over other people using fear.
Yeah.
Because there's no evidence that such a being exists. No worthwhile evidence.
Here's another one for you. They wanted them out is why, as I said, it is born of anti-Semitism.
Who wanted Who
I don't know.
wanted
I'm
who?
just going to ask Stone. Stone, I don't know if you are stoned, but could you please respond to that? We'd really appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find some people agreeing
As I
with
said
you.
there, anti-Semitism, people nowadays equate it with being opposed to the Jews, but
Yeah.
the Arabs are Semitic people as well.
Yeah. Someone, JG's put one in. My opinion, Tony and Avery, is the Zionists want greater Israel by extending Israel into Jordan, and Iran stands in their way. Iran, I mean, geographically, Iran's on the other side, though. It's not sort of like the other side of the Middle East, really, between Afghanistan and India, or Pakistan, I should say, and India.
You've got Iran, Pakistan, Afghanistan there. You've got Jordan's over here somewhere.
Yeah. So thanks everybody for your responses. Just keep them coming in. The conversation is fantastic.
He's right about the Zionists, though. Zionists are the extremists in Israel.
Yeah.
So
I guess if we come back to the original conversation, which is, and people are having this conversation online, which is fantastic. But the original conversation really is this a religious war? What makes it a religious war if people are declaring it as such, and why are they making that claim? That's the issue that primarily we are trying to address here, folks. So keep the conversation going. And let's continue the conversation generally, because I wanted to. The other issue that I was trying to get to, Avery, on this other clip, if I can come back to it, is that what should be the involvement of the Australian population, of Australian government? Should the Australian government decide right now that we are not going to get involved in this war, that we will not supply Israel and the United States with intelligence in terms of Pine Gap and the Five Eyes and all those other things that we offer? Should Australia now say, bugger off, you're an absolute disgrace, you're a waste of space, we cannot trust you around tariffs, we can't trust you around trade, we can't trust you around AUKUS, we can't trust you around anything, and therefore we are no longer going to support you? Is this the position that Australia should now be taking?
To some extent, yes. We should, while the Orange Hitler is in charge in the United States, we should absolutely not be supporting whatsoever. We shouldn't be supporting him in this little adventure he's got going in the Middle East right now. I don't think we should keep away from that. We should not be supplying him or Israel with weapons. Not that the Americans need supplying with weapons from us, because they manufacture enough of their own. If we were going to provide any weapons to anybody, maybe we should be providing them to the people that are opposed to what's going on in the Middle East there.
So you are you suggesting that we should be looking at arming Iran?
Intelligence rather.
Intelligence.
There's a thing. These wars, the Americans going in and doing this. You mentioned Afghanistan earlier, and the Yanks have got this idea that everybody wants to be in America. They've got this idea that
Sorry, that everybody wants to what?
Wants to be like America. Everybody wants to go.
Who's the everybody you're talking about?
The Americans think. A lot of Americans think that everybody outside of the United States wants what America's got and wants American style of government and shit like that. So they think that the presidents like George W. Bush and the Orange Hitler have gone in thinking that they can impose democracy. And you can't impose democracy.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah.
The people have got to want it. The Iranian people were heading towards it because they wanted it. And what Trump has done, and what General Mark Hurling was implying, was Trump with that action, this action now is turning them away from that back to the authoritarian.
They don't. I think we could argue that the Iranian people perhaps want they don't want the sort of oppression that they've suffered under the Ayatollah. So and I don't know whether that I don't think that necessarily means a democracy, does it? It just means that they want a better way of life. They want freedom to be able to say the things they want. They want to be able to enact their human rights, I guess. So that doesn't have to be in a democracy. One could get that under a more less democratic scheme, though, I guess. So, but you're arguing that the Americans believe that they are so powerful and influential that they can bring about political change, so they can overthrow despotic governments. Basically,
they overthrew a democratically elected government in Chile.
Yeah,
that government was communist, but it was elected by the people. And they didn't immediately then go, what's his name, Allende, was it? Didn't then say all other political parties are bad and there'll be no more elections.
Yeah.
But the United States didn't like it, so they orchestrated a coup to get to topple leadership. Right?
And they don't. I mean, so what would happen if a country, which has sort of happened in Hungary to some degree, I guess, where a democratic election was held and a communist party or an extreme right-wing party gets in, would that, and they oppressed people in a certain way, would that be the same? Like when you look at the United States, for example, Avery, the United States would love to be, or the Trump administration, I should say, would love to be the type of administration whereby there was no free press, where there was a suppression of other ideas, and banning conversations that one could have at universities, where the rights of LGBTQI plus people would be completely diminished, where people could not read what they needed to read. They would be banning books, all that sort of stuff. I mean, ideally, for the United States or for a lot of the MAGA people, this is what they want.
Yeah.
So the very organisation that they're suppressing, or they want to suppress, is the sort of organisation that they also want. I mean, they would even abandon elections. Like one of the reasons.
Who else did that? Do we know in history that did that?
Oh no, he probably name started with H, and I don't mean Hilditch either. So, but like there is this, as I've said many times, there's just so many of these contradictions that exist within their system. That so is it, like if they want to get rid of a regime like this one and others that are similar, is there a sense of projection around all of that? Like I'm jealous and envious because these people, like his love for Putin, and Xi, and even Jijan Kim, like his admiration for these strong leaders is really about an admiration for a system that he thinks would be advantageous to him if he could only implement it. But here he is having a war with a country who has already implemented the type of regime that he would like to have.
Yeah. You'd think he'd be attacking some of the, invading Australia or New Zealand or something like that, a really powerful country like New Zealand.
Yeah.
Maybe the McDonald and Hurd Islands, with the penguins, Attack them,
and, he tries to influence his power through the tariffs and tries to influence and change the way the world think about trade and that sort of stuff. Because really, at the end of the day, this is all about power. This is about, like this war is about how the United States can flex their muscle when it comes to military aggression. That's what this is about. How tough are we? How tough am I, Donald Trump? It is fucking pathetic.
How tough am I, Donald Trump? He admires Putin and Xi because they are strong men, because he's a weak man. Strong men don't tell you how strong they are. rich people don't tell you how rich they are, and intelligent people don't tell you how smart they are. Right? And con men do.
Yeah, and it's interesting to note, mate, we're none of those things for varying reasons. But it belies any sort of degree of understanding that I have as to how these people think and what their plans are. Because at the end of the day, this is going to be so destructive, and yet, I wonder, Teflon Trump, at what point will there be some sort of moment of reckoning for him and his behaviour, not just over this, but over Epstein, over past behaviours? Yeah.
So that'll be when they push him into the incinerator or bury him under a bush in a golf course somewhere.
No, I want to see him with a white jacket on.
They do it, by the way.
I want to see him with a white jacket on, tied to the front, and thrown into some sort of asylum, because that's basically where he belongs. But the point is that there are so many people that go along with him as well. There's so many, like this MAGA movement who think for whatever reason he's, the other thing, that just brought me to the other point. He's kind of like God or Jesus incarnated. That he is, and people talk about him as being the second coming. For Christ's sake, sorry, I'm using the word of Christ in vain there, but how can we possibly think of this man as being anything that resembles a sense of goodness?
Yeah, well, there's nothing good about the man. I said to somebody today on Facebook that he said about Trump being a Christian, and I said that I've been an atheist for at least 50, nearly 60 years, and I'm more of a Christian than Trump is.
But that's because you're a humanitarian.
Yeah. So Sandra Schmidt on the comment said something earlier about peace and equality is what Jesus was after. And there's a comment that somebody's put up in here. Multi-option says Hexeth is daily bragging about killing people. What a country. Hexeth is an evangelical Christian. Why is he bragging about killing people?
Yeah.
Right? Maybe if they were Christians that were being killed, he wouldn't be bragging about killing them, but they're not.
Yep.
So that he might be looking at it as a religious war. Then we can get rid of those damned infidel Muslims.
James brings up a good point here, which I agree with. We probably could comment on. It's about maintaining hegemony, and it's quite interesting. I listened today to the Canadian Prime Minister Carney, and he talks about this all the time, that there is a hegemony that's present in the world that we've become subordinate to.
Yeah.
And that there has to become a time, Avery, where other nations, middle class nations like Canada and Australia, or middle power nations, I should say, could start to say, well, okay, enough's enough. We're not going to buy into that anymore.
Under Canada's leadership, they started doing it because Canada's been negotiating with the EU and Australia and other nations to form a large trading bloc. Excuse me. That excludes the United States. Let them. If the United States wants to be isolationist, let them. We can all of the rest of us can talk to each other and trade and stuff like that. And the hell with the Yanks. If they don't want to join in, leave it.
And we are. Yeah, and they're building a trade bloc, which is interesting enough. Yeah. Carney talked about it today as being something Australia has not yet joined, because he's joined with India in particular, and I think it's probably some Asian countries in his latest exploits, and he's going to Japan next. So he's building this group of immediate type countries, even though I wouldn't think India was one of those, but I guess it is, whereby, and Europe, whereby we can start to spread our trade a free trade agreement between all of those nations to the exclusion of the United States.
Yeah.
So they're going to become more and more isolated now, less and less significant. And that notion that that James just raised about hegemony will diminish. Because what he was doing, it's a really interesting speech. It's worth listening to. It's available on the ABC if anybody wants to access that YouTube channel. Because he also talks about the volume of trade that can be done between all those other countries, and the access to rare earths, for example. Australia and Canada together have a large swath of rare earths that together we could start to distribute, and we could start to manufacture or refine or whatever it is we need to do. And there's, around defence, there's so much we could do together. Europe's now talking about, in fact, developing their own software to replace the American type software that they've bought for years. Mate, there's so much I could say about all this.
The UK is taking steps to move away from Visa and MasterCard.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And what's the other thing? We were talking last week about right-wing parties and the chance of success in that. You saw what happened in the UK, did you? Nigel Farage, there was a by-election, I think it was, and the
one the Greens won.
Yeah. Pollsters were saying, the Reform Party is going to easily take this, and all the bookmakers were saying, no, they're not. It'll be the Greens, and the Greens romped home.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, and I think
in Hungary, they've got an election coming up, and it's looking like a much more moderate. He's not a moderate. He's still right of centre, but much more moderate than he's a lot further left than Viktor Orban is.
Yeah.
And this guy's he's still right of centre, but he's looking like he's going to win.
Yeah. So I just want to tell you,
don't seem to be moving to the far right.
Someone who's also, we'll come back to that point in a moment, but someone that's also includes Singapore, Indonesia and Malaysia and all of that too. And I think, I do appreciate that. I think that's so clear in that conversation about what are those other countries, what are those middle powers that certainly could destroy the hegemony that we've received in terms of tariffs and the power of the United States and also China. This, and also, is there this, you really raised a good point, Avery, there hasn't been an indication in Australia at the moment in terms of one nation, but one does wonder whether or not at the end of the day this will be, I've got to stop saying end of the day, I hate that comment, but
end of the day.
What is it that we can to do, I guess, to break the monopolies that these countries have? Breaking with Visa and American Express and whatever sort of is a good thing. But, at what point do we stand on our own? What point do we say, bugger off the United States, AUKUS is out, give us back our money, you're never going to give those ships to us anyway. And at what point do we make a stand against the behaviour of someone like Donald Trump? And what consequences will there be?
The day that he imposed tariffs on this term round, as soon as he did that, we should have been up against, saying no, we're not going to play your game. Not go in there and make peace with him or appease him. Appeasing dictators never works. Just ask the Europeans that were living in the 1930s. It never works.
Yeah. History will tell us that. Okay,
and
so
all
let's just...
we're doing right now is appeasing a dictator.
Yeah.
And dictators like going to war. And what's he done?
Yeah, nothing. Well,
he's gone to war.
Let's see how it unfolds. Okay, let's move away from that. You raised another issue which we probably could discuss, which is the impact of the demise of the Liberal Party here in Australia and the rise of One Nation. I'm just wondering what you think the outcome might be around all of that.
I'm loath to say the rise of one nation as though they are absolutely confirmed as a definitive force, right? I'll believe that once I see them winning a significant number of seats in Parliament. I'm not convinced that they will. With the election that we've got coming up later this month, isn't it?
Yeah, March 21st.
March 21st, the election that we've got coming up. Sloan, I can't remember his first name. He's a political commentator, does the same sort of thing that we do. And he was saying that he sees the One Nation vote in South Australia being them getting a significant number of votes, but not getting significant enough numbers in each constituency to win that many seats. And he's forecasting there's going to be a Labour landslide, and that there'll be no official opposition because he doesn't think the Labour Party's in South Australia, the Liberal Party of South Australia's got a hope in hell of winning more than 2 seats, and that the majority of the opposition is going to be independents, maybe one nation.
I did hear the other day too, Avery, you might be interested in this, that the amount of time because I'll just reframe this. I'm going to have a session which we're doing live on Nathan Ogilvy's site, the rightist leftists, on election night. And when Nathan and I were talking about it the other day, we were saying, well, it might be over within an hour, but apparently it won't be, simply because there are so many candidates. For some seats, there are 10, 12 candidates. And by the time the preference get distributed amongst all of those, it'll take forever. So the result might be, we could say the Labor Party have won, probably pretty soon, but the degree to which other parties may have some sort of sway in terms of some of the electorates is going to be a completely different category, I think. Because I think, the interesting thing for me is that One Nation in South Australia has got field candidates in every seat. Whether or not they win 1 or 2 or 3 of those seats remains to be seen. Preferential voting will probably determine not. But nevertheless, they are a power to be dealt with. Now, but nationally, they seem to be holding sway in a completely different way. They seem to be far more influential nationally in other states apart from South Australia. And I don't know whether that's because we're less regional. Like our regional seats is, one of the seats up north is the largest in the world. So I don't know how this is going to play out necessarily, but it's interesting to note that Malinauskas is so popular that very few votes will leak elsewhere, primarily because of him.
In the other states, is One Nation support sufficient in each constituency? In each constituency for them to win enough seats to form an opposition or even form government. They could get a lot of votes, and if they don't get sufficient with the first preference and maybe second or third preferences, that they win nothing.
Yeah.
My son James said Pauline Hanson has been in Parliament since 1998 or something like that, so we shouldn't count her out. Well, she might still be there. She could still, or 96, whenever it was, she could still be there, but that doesn't mean the party's going to be there, right? And they, as I said, they might get tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of votes, whatever, but they're scattered so widely that they don't get sufficient in a constituency to actually win the seat.
And I saw something that was a bit disturbing the other day, and that was, or yesterday, well, it was that James Packer has provided $180,000 to advance. So we're going to, I think, because of this fracturing that we're seeing between, well, particularly the Liberal Party and the Nationals being wiped out, is that people like James Packer and Reinhardt are going to see an opportunity now to be able to invest in specific right-wing organisations that are going to do their bidding. And I think that that is the thing that we need to be watching out for the most.
Make Australia great again. That's what we're going to get.
Yeah, which is pathetic. I mean, I don't think that they will go necessarily for a slogan such as that, because Australians are not in favour of Trumpism at all. But we are likely to see more funding offered to these smaller parties who will do the bidding for the Australian version of oligarchs, Packers and Reinhardt. So, and to what extent? And Murdoch, well, Murdoch's already doing his thing with Sky News. Pauline Hanson or someone from One Nation is on every single night, and they're so anti the left that it's appalling to watch. So, and I think we're going to start to see more and more of that come over the next 2 years. We're going to see a polarisation that we've never seen before in relation to the way people are funding political parties such as Advance.
Here in South Australia, the government has taken steps to make it harder for minor parties to raise funds.
Yeah.
And one of the things that killed us off in the Child Protection Party was fundraising, and I say I'm pretty sure it's the one thing that Malinowskis has done here that I really didn't support. That changed the funding legislation.
Yeah, and let's face it, how different the Child Protection Party would have been if someone had donated $180,000 to us when we were active.
Heidi,
it would have made the world of difference, and probably would have been enough to help us win a vote or two, or a seat or two. So, I mean, I understand all that, but money does help, and maybe we should start looking at ways by which governments fund elections as opposed to donations driving elections.
How about the taxpayer funds it through there's a budget that funds the election. If you field candidates, it comes out of the treasury.
Yeah.
So there's no labor, there's no union influence on a political party. There's no
corporations,
big business, no corporations influence, no rich mega donors with no Clive Palmer's donating millions of dollars. Don't allow that either. I mean, was it 2022? He put $80 million into his own campaign. It was his money in his own campaign. Even banned that,
Yeah.
So
and didn't win a seat. So
didn't win a seat. Yeah.
Hey, mate. Now we need to finish off now. So I just want to say thanks, mate, for coming online. Sorry to everybody about the confusion around the audio and stuff. We'll sort that out certainly next time Avery and I are on, which will be next Thursday, I'm assuming. Yep. So, and we'll certainly have all that organised by then. It'll be much smoother. And it's a bit stressful to know that I've got those issues and you can't hear what's going on. I think it's distressing. And also the video that I was going to play didn't work for varying reasons, which is my fault. But, okay, thanks, Avery. Catch you in just a moment.
Yep.
So just in conclusion, I just need to say, please subscribe to my channel, ring the bell for further notifications, do the things that you need to do. I really appreciate it. And if you've got an extra $10 or so you want to send to us, I'll send that to Avery for all of his assistance. And I want to thank Sandra for the $10 that she sent. I really do appreciate it. So let us know. We've got a couple of surveys going on. We've got 47 votes. Is the war with Iran a religious war? 74% say no. 26% say yes. And I have a community poll, which I'm just about to update, which is, it says, what you like to see on my channel. I've got four responses: more live feeds, more broader news commentary, more international political commentary, or more Australian political commentary. And 62% of my 29 voters have said 62%. So that'll stay up for a while. I'll keep you informed as to what that. And that's the purpose of that, is just to inform me the sorts of things you want to see from my channel. One of the things I could put up there is, do you want me to do more interviews? As I said, I've done an interview with Daniel, which will be coming up over the next few days. And if you've got something that, like Daniel did, Daniel contacted me by email, and and we had a chat, and then I brought him around here because he lives locally. But if you want to be able to have a conversation with me about the things that matter to you, please email me. I've put up my email address before. I'll do it again on my live stream so that everybody can grab it. And, I'm prepared to have a chat with you, providing it's respectful, about the matters, the things that matter to you and to me. So let us know, and then we can organise a time to do that. Or even, you could find yourself having a chat to Avery and myself, and the three of us could be having a conversation, provided I can work out the sound. Okay, thanks everybody for being with me. I really do appreciate it. It's been great being with you, and look forward to catching you on Tuesday, when I'll be on my own, but there'll be plenty that we could talk about, and I'll certainly be focusing a lot on the questions and the comments that you raise. Take care, everybody.